Let's wrap up our Lab 6 class work. We created a simple dashboard where we combined a time plot with an annual returns table. I took Steve's suggestion and made the annual returns table into a highlight table with some opacity on the colors so that they don't clash with the colors of our time plot. Notice I also changed the color scheme on our time plot, making Tesla green and GM red and keeping Ford blue. There are a couple small edits that I'd like to do here. First, I don't like that Tesla is not the tickers are not exactly to the right of the end of the time plot. And so let's go to that sheet. And let's change the alignment from automatic to vertical alignment to middle. I think that looks a little better. If we go back to the simple dashboard, one more change I'd like to make is that we lost the label on the vertical axis. And as a rule, we should always have our axes labeled. So we could create space for that label by moving the 0 vertical axis to the right a little bit there. And the axis label is now there. You notice I actually spelled it out instead of having just edge close. I spelled out what that really means. But that makes our line plot and table slightly misaligned. So you could see that the leftmost edge of the time plot is a little bit to the right of the leftmost edge of the table. So I'm going to move that one so that they are lined up perfectly on top of each other. And now we have our year labels line up precisely with the grid lines on the time plot. Okay, so fantastic. So this is our nice simple dashboard using one data source. The next thing we did in class was we combined our time plot with some financial performance of our 3 car makers. And what I'd like to do is show dashboard actions. So we can create actions. Those are very powerful interactive elements that we can add to our dashboard and highlight or filter certain aspects, certain data on the dashboard. So let's click on dashboard and select actions. And we're gonna add an action. Let's do that here. First one we're going to add, let's start with filter. Every action has sort of 2 key features. The source sheet, meaning a sheet that triggers the action, and then the target sheet where the action is reflected. So for now, let's say we want to trigger a filtering action from the time plot sheet. So let's select that. Let's say we want that trigger to happen on actually selecting a data element in the time plot. And we want that to be reflected in the revenue and profit sheet. Let's say okay to that. Okay to this. And what will that do? So if I'm interacting with the dashboard and I click on Tesla, action is triggered. It's reflected in the revenue and profit sheet. And now I only see revenue and profit of Tesla. Notice that inside the time plot, highlighting happened. We highlighted Tesla, but there's a filtering happening in the revenue and profit sheet. If I click on Ford, I want to see what's happening to Ford. Nothing too good. Ford's losing money. GM is roaring ahead with their profits. this is what actions can do. I can certainly have a lot of control over what happens if I want to clear the filter. I can just hit the escape key. Let's edit that action a little bit. Let's click on it, edit. Perhaps I don't want the action to happen on actually selecting. Maybe I just want to have it to happening on hovering over a data point. So we'll say okay, okay. Let's see how that changes things. It's filtering happens immediately as I hover over each ticker. So actions, you saw that there's actually more than filtering is only one kind of action that can happen. Let's add, let's actually get rid of this action, and let's add highlight action. Again, we're going to use time plot. Actually, no, let's do it the other way. Let's use the revenue as the target. No, sorry, as the source of the action, and let's make the time plot to be the target. That's where the action is going to be reflected. And the action now is not filtering, it's just highlighting. And I want that to happen on hover. And so I'll say okay to that. Okay to that, and let's see what happens. Right now we got okay. So if I'm interacting with the revenue and profit dashboard, and I hover over, say, GM, then a highlight action happens in the time plot. And I see that the time plot of a GM stock gets highlighted. Same thing with Ford, same thing with Tesla. So that's a filter action, highlight action. So let's create one more action where the dashboard would send us to a URL. It would open a browser and take us to a website. That action is called go to URL action. However, we need a field that contains the URL. Certainly in the revenue and income sheet, we have a field called a company site that contains the URL. I put company site on the tooltip, so it is part of the sheet, and I can run an action on that field. So for example, if I hover here over Ford, I can see, yes, I got Ford.com. Tesla, I got Tesla.com. So now that field, that URL field, is part of a sheet, and I can run an action on it. Let's go back here. Let's go to dashboard actions. Let's add. Now we already have a highlight action on hover. So let's go to URL action on select. The source can be just the revenue and profit sheet, not the time plot, because time plot does not have the URL. And the URL is contained in the company site field. I'll say okay to that. Okay to this. I can have more than one action in a dashboard. I have one that happens on hover, one that happens on select. That's okay. Here's what's happening on hover, and here's GM. And let's see what happens if I click on GM. It opens a browser and it takes me to GM's website. Wow. Is that Malcolm Gladwell? I think so. All right, so those are actions. Really powerful, really cool things.